And for some reason, oh yeah, it's on Facebook as well. Good. I apologise, I didn't get my show notes up. Let's get my show notes up. I'm dependent on them. When you get to my age, you've got to have your show notes, haven't you? And right. So, hi there, folks. It's Jonathan Denwood here. This is another live workshop with me and Haroon. We're going to be talking about amazing add-on for Elementor, Dynamic Content For Elementor. We did a part 1, which you can watch on the WP-Tonic YouTube channel. I'm going to let Haroon quickly introduce himself, and then we're going to go straight in it. This is going to be pretty hardcore. We're going to be Haroon mostly. It's going to be mostly Haroon that's going to drive this, and we're going to be covering a lot of territory in the next 40 to 45 minutes. Hopefully you're going to find it helpful. It is going to be instructive, but we are going to be covering quite a bit, and there's probably going to be a part 3 or 4 to this, because this particular plugin is just amazing and how it can extend Elementor. So first of all, Haroon, can you quickly introduce yourself to the WP-Tonic tribe?
Thank you, Jonathan. Hello, everyone. This is Haroon, the founder of Happy Cloud, and I often consult for WP-Tonic, where I provide services like marketing automation and integrations between different tools, including learning management systems, buddy boss communities, and other advanced tools of WordPress. And I've been working with WordPress for around 14 years now. And one of the expertises that I've developed over all this time is identifying the right tools for the right jobs. So today, as Jonathan mentioned, we're going to be covering one such tool that we started covering in our last session. But the scope of this tool is just so vast that it's impossible to cover even scratch its surface in one session. So we covered its dynamic visibility feature of this tool called Dynamic Content For Elementor. We covered its dynamic visibility feature to quite an extent in that session, but I still left out a major part that day that we're going to cover today, and it has to do with membership sites. So when you're dealing with membership sites, you often want to show or hide content based on whether someone is a member or not, or based on what membership level they're on. And if you're using WooCommerce memberships, that's something you can easily do within Elementor using Dynamic Content For Elementor. Let's take a look right away. I'm going to share my screen. All right, so as all of you can see, we have the WordPress dashboard over here, and we're going to go to our theme builder. Although you can do it in any Elementor content, but since we started off with the theme builder using a single post layout, so let's just continue with that. We're going to edit it. And over here, we have a template of single post layout. Let's say that this post content is what we want to restrict, that is show or hide based on whether someone has a particular membership or not. So we go to visibility. Let me first go ahead and reset anything that's already here. We enable visibility, and then among the triggers, we make sure that WooCommerce is selected. Now we go to this WooCommerce section. You might see more sections over here based on how many triggers are selected over here, but currently I only have WooCommerce selected. So let's go to WooCommerce trigger. And over here, before we move on to the membership-based triggers, let me quickly close these. And let's get rid of this as well. Yeah. That was just stuff that I added when I was preparing for this session. So before we proceed to membership triggers, we can see over here that we have triggers for whether the cart is empty or not empty. So we can show a particular section based on whether or not someone has products in their cart. This could be handy if you have a sort of a cart widget in a sidebar. Sorry, sidebar, not sidebar. Where
just one thing, Haroon. Your sound. Can you tap your mic? Can you? It's not going through your mic.
Oh, okay. Let me switch the audio to yes. The mic that was selected was the one with these headphones, with these earphones. Let's switch to the good mic. How about now? Is this any better?
Yeah, can you tap it again? Yeah, it's going through that mic now. It's a lot better.
Yeah, great. So we can sure hide a widget or a column or a section, anything that can be selected in Elementor. We can select a section, a column, or a widget to get this visibility option. Let's say you want a cart in the sidebar that only shows up if there are actually products in the cart. You can use this option to show a cart widget if the cart is not empty. Similarly, if you're building, this is a post layout. If you're building a single product layout, you can have different sections appearing based on whether the product is a simple product, a group product, an external product, or a variable product. So you can have different product layouts based on the product type and show or hide different components in the UI based on the type of product page that we're on. Also, you can show or hide content based on whether or not a specific product has been added to a cart. So let's say you want to show a message if the user has added one of your most high value products to the cart. You can select that product over here, and if that product is in the cart, then the particular widget will show up or be hidden based on the visibility settings that you've set over here. Whether you've chosen to show, chosen the show condition or the hide condition. And similarly, you can have visibility based on whether a product from a particular category is in the cart. So you can specify a category over here. Then if any product from that category is in the cart, this widget will show up or hide based on the condition that you've set. But now let's come to the membership section. So over here, you can select whether or not to show a particular widget based on whether the user currently visiting the website has a particular membership or if the user has no membership. So let's say I select Platinum membership for this particular content area, and Platinum membership and Gold membership. Let's select that and update. Now, if I view this post, which I'm gonna do shortly, let's keep this open and go to posts, all posts. Let's view this post in an incognito window. We don't see any content over here because this post is restricted to members, as we can see over here, and two particular membership levels. So in the incognito window, we're logged out. We're not logged in as any member, nor do we have any membership levels, of course, if we're logged out. But even if I were logged in as a silver membership member, since silver membership is not included over here, I would not see the post content. And we can also add a fallback message over here. Let's say we can have a message, you do not have access to view this content, and update it.
Once it's updated, if we refresh it, we see this message over here. You do not have access to view this content. So if you have a publication where posts are only visible to members who are logged in, this is a great way to handle visibility for those sites. And sky is the limit, really. But if I view it while logged in with my account, and this account does have access to the particular membership that we're talking about, if I view this post over here in this window, where I'm logged in, and my current user account has this membership, I see the post content, welcome to WordPress, this is your first post, edit or delete it, and then start writing. So this is the actual post content. So even though you can do the same with short codes, but that can get quite tedious real quick. And you don't want your content all riddled with short codes because that also makes it very cumbersome in terms of readability for you when you're actually going in and editing the content. So you have to find the text between short codes and edit it. It's just not an elegant experience. Plus, with this dynamic visibility feature, you can match multiple conditions. You can match as many visibility conditions.
Can I ask a quick question? Because our audience are mostly going to be looking at this with either membership or they're looking to utilize Lifter or Learn Dash as part of a learning. And so they're looking at this. And can this, using this add-on plugin with Elementor, could you set up like quizzes, especially quizzes, or, yeah, let's stay with the quiz metaphor. They fill in a quiz and they get to a certain mark level, or they answer a certain range of questions one way, and then another group answers the questions another way. Do you think this what you're showing could be utilized to show separate answers or further educational material based on what the person, how they answered the quiz?
No, not directly, because this feature works based on the post or page the user is currently on, or the user's role, or the term or archive, native WordPress stuff, and some dynamic tags. In dynamic tags, we've got things like whether or not a particular value is less than, greater than, or it contains. This is a more advanced feature.
So you can put some if as logic.
Yes.
Yes. So you probably might be. Oh, right.
I'm coming to that. So this dynamic tags features basically lets you select a dynamic tag from Elementor's native dynamic tags. Let's say you want to show or hide things based on the value of the post URL, or even a post custom field should be somewhere around here. Yeah, post custom field. So let's say what you were just saying, Jonathan, whether someone has answered particular questions or not, if that information is being saved in, let's say, let's get rid of post field. Let's say we're talking about the current user. So there should be user info. Yes. So user info. Yeah. In this user info, we can choose a particular user meta field. If the whether or not someone has answered questions is saved in a user's user meta, then we can utilize this over here. Let's say that field is called quiz correct answers. So let's just say this is the name of the particular meta field. You can show or hide a particular section or widget based on whether this field is empty or not, and whether, like, this first one is for empty. The second one would be true if it has any value other than empty. And then there's greater than a particular value or less than. Let's say if someone has answered more than 3 correct questions, and that's saved as quiz correct answers field. You can have a comparison. If they've answered more than 3 correct questions, then this field can be shown. So it all depends on where that data is being stored. And this is not even it. There's more. Let's take a look at some other conditions. There's device and browser, which is like showing or hiding things based on user's device or web browser. Date and time. So you want particular fields to be shown before or after a particular date or between 2 particular dates and times. That is great for event-based sites. You want to build a custom event layout for let's say, some event plugin that you're using on the back end, and you want to show particular events between certain dates. You want to build a custom grid of that. You can do this. You can do that with this. Context is another great option based on, here you can show or hide things based on whether you're on a main site or a child site or a multi-site, all sorts of WordPress related parameters. And then we've got, let me get rid of the ones that we've already seen. Then we've got the WooCommerce bit that we've just seen. And this My Fast app is just some third-party tool called My Fast app. They've integrated with this tool for some reason. I haven't ever needed to use it. And you can even show or hide it based on randomness. But then there's this custom condition. So I recently used it on a client site where I needed to combine, where I needed to basically utilize multiple conditions that weren't available to me in the native options. So over here, you can add any PHP function or any PHP code that returns the value of true or false. And based on that, the widget would be shown or hidden. So let's say I want to show it if the current page is the front page. So I've added return is underscore front. This is a native function of WordPress which returns true if the page currently being viewed is the front page, which is either the home page or the blog archive page, depending on your WordPress reading settings. So I've returned the value of is front. If this value is true, then this particular section or widget would be shown. If this value is false, it would be hidden. So if you work with code, you don't need to go in the back end and create specific templates, particularly in code for displaying or showing or hiding things based on complicated coded conditions. You can just enter simple code over here, the code simply over here, simple or complex code. As long as it returns a true or a false value, it will be used as the condition trigger. And so I think that pretty much covers all of the visibility related features that I want to discuss. We can get into like the depth of this visibility feature for so many more sessions, but I think from this point onward, you guys can take on from here, learn more from their website. If you go into their docs from their help center, and over here, you can check out their documentation for all of their widgets, all of their extensions. In fact, we're dealing with an extension over here. And let's just search visibility. Yes, the first one is dynamic visibility. So over here, you get to see all of the triggers, and clicking on these triggers would show you all the details of what can be done using those triggers. So let's move on to some other features. In particular, let's take a look at some form-related features. So if we take a look at features by category and click on forms, these are some of my really most favorite features of this extension. One is dynamic visibility, the other is forms. Another one is dynamic tokens, which is amazing.
I think one specific area, because of the type of things we generally talk about in these workshops, Haroon, is this particular add-on, does it really, are there any particular areas that, I just see it, got one there for MailChimp. Are there any particular elements of this add-on that really works well with Fluent CRM or Woo funnels with marketing automation type of scenarios? Are any of these any elements of this particular add-on that works really well with those?
The dynamic visibility one is highly relevant when you're building funnels, because you want to show or hide information based on maybe where the user based on where the user is in their journey. So whether a user has purchased a product or not, whether the user has added things to a cart or not, that we just saw in WooCommerce, and membership level based features. So there's that, or whether someone is logged in as a user or not. So when you're building funnels, those features can come handy. But other than that, the form based features are going to be quite relevant. Not directly, but indirectly, because you're going to build all sorts of forms to feed data into your CRM. So the more control you have over a form, the better you can filter the data before it goes into your CRM. The better you can actually organize the data before it goes into the CRM.
Yeah, before we look at that, the other thing that occurred to me that's also quite relevant is that if you're selling some form of physical product or some additional add-on, when people are, let's say you've set up your learning management with WooCommerce and they're buying the course and you want some upsells, some bumps, upsells, I would imagine the visibility and some of the functionality in this add-on is quite useful. Would I be correct in that?
Agreed. Absolutely agreed. Because you can show them, show or hide different sections based on what they have in the cart. So let's say you're a small shop where you want to show particular upsells when someone adds some particular products to their cart. You can do that to help them add those related products to the cart as well. If you're a really huge shop, then this isn't the right tool for doing that. Because then you can't be bothered with going into pages and selecting widgets and specifying for every particular widget which products you want to show based on what's in the cart. Then it gets tedious. Then you want to automate things. But if it's a small shop with a few products where you want full manual control over what's shown based on what products are being in the cart, then yes, it's pretty handy.
I suppose there's a lot, but I suppose the one thing it won't do, which may be cart flows or launch flows or Woo funnels. We were until we got onto Woo funnels, we were big. We utilise cart flows or launch flows to have this one-page shopping cart experience. I suppose you still use that if you want to produce that one-page shopping, or you can use something like Woo funnels. Would I be correct about that?
Yes, because that's the right tool for that job. This isn't a tool for that job.
Right, right. So sorry to interrupt, but I think
no worries.
Hopefully you can see that's useful to our audience to clarify that, maybe.
Absolutely. So coming to this forms layout, forms feature, let me zoom in a bit so that all of you can see this better. So these are the particular features that Dynamic Content for Elementor adds to the native Elementor forms. And mind you, many of these features are not new or unique WordPress form features at all. A lot of these features are present in forms like Gravity forms, like Ninja forms, like Caldera forms, like WP forms. a lot of them are available in paid versions, premium versions of those form plugins. But I love Elementor's native form widget. It's like you're building a page, you want to add a form on it. You don't have to exit the Elementor interface, go to a different interface, build a form, then bring that form into Elementor, then style it within Elementor using limited styling capabilities that certain form widgets give you. Native Elementor forms takes care of all of that hassle, but it lacks a lot of useful features that more powerful form plugins have. But when you combine native Elementor forms with this dynamic content for Elementor, you're pretty much covered. You can have address autocomplete fields. You can have an amount field that gets calculated based on the values of other fields. You can set the whole formula of how that amount field is to be calculated, which can be useful for code generation type of forms. You can have a conditional active campaign field that gets value based on calculation or based on values of other fields. You can have conditional fields in general, like where a value of a field would be conditional to what other fields have been selected. Conditional MailChimp is similar to conditional active campaign. You can have conditional validation, where a particular field would be validated based on certain conditions and based on values of other fields as well. A very sort of flexible approach to form validation. Let's say there are 3 fields and the third field's value needs to be validated based on the first and second field's value rather than the third field's own value. You can do that as well. And this webhook feature is amazing. If you are working on integrations between WordPress and other applications, let's say you have an in-house business system of some sort that is not based on WordPress while your site is on WordPress, and you want that whenever a form is submitted on your site, certain data flows to your internal corporate application or whatever other tool you're using, and that tool supports a webhook listener. Then this Elementor form using this webhook field using this webhook feature rather, can send a webhook to your application's webhook listener with the data that was submitted in the form. And then there's a confirmation dialog, there's a counter field, dynamic email field. So the standard email fields in Elementor forms, there are 2 email fields, email features, sending email features, not email fields. So the send email actions rather, the standard Elementor form has send email actions for sending 1 email to you and 1 email to whoever submitted the forms. But this dynamic email feature sort of is like that feature on steroids. It lets you choose recipients based on Elementor's dynamic data tags. It lets you choose recipient based on certain conditions. For example, you want the same form submission to go to different departments based on the value of a particular drop-down field or based on the value of particular radio field. You can do that. Let's say if user selects location A in the form, then form submission email goes to your representative A, and if they select location B, the form submission email goes to representative B. So you've got different sales agents taking care of different locations or different aspects of your business, and a form is submitted where user has specified what they're interested in. The email could go to different particular members of your team, which you can't do with the native Elementor forms. And then there's dynamic redirect. The native Elementor forms redirect can only redirect users to a particular URL. This dynamic redirect feature can redirect users to different URLs based on the values of different fields that were selected in the form. Similarly, there's a dynamic select field, which is kind of self-explanatory. Dynamic tags, and this is something that we're going to cover when we discuss tags and wishlist. Enhanced multi-step. So this was the first tool that added multi-step capability to Elementor forms. Before Elementor natively had multi-step capability, but this tool's multi-step capability is still more enhanced than the native Elementor multi-step form capability. This export feature is similar to the webhook feature, but this lets you, let's open it in a new tab. This lets you export the data of a form submission based on post or get method. So you can send an HTTP post or get request to a different site with all the form submission data when a user submits a form. And the data can be in JSON format, and this you can even specify that the data should be sent only if the URL is an HTTPS URL to avoid any insecure data transmission. And you can also have full log of every API call, every HTTP call that has gone out from users submitting the form. Then we've got features like field description. This could be handy on the front end where you don't want just a field label. You also want a more descriptive sort of sentence describing a particular field. So you want to add more data to the field for users to see other than just the field's label. For example, instructions. So let's say you don't want to cram all the instructions in the field label. You can have a description field below the label that you can style differently from the label. And this can come very handy, especially when, especially if your users need a lot of hand-holding in the sort of information you're getting from them in forms. Then you can specify field, you can restrict field lengths so that, let's say, you don't want the username in a form to exceed 32 characters. You can specify a maximum field length of 32 characters. And then there's hidden label field that could be useful for you for the backend. You can add icons to fields, icons to forms rather, between fields. Inline alignment. So while Elementor forms do come with some alignment options, so they're pretty, they can get limiting if you're dealing with some advanced layouts. This gives you more flexible approach to aligning Elementor forms, Elementor form fields. JS field. You want to add some JavaScript, custom JavaScript for custom validation of form fields, or some custom JavaScript action when someone submits a form or when someone fills out a field. You can hand code that JavaScript using this JS field rather than inserting JavaScript in a file and including that file in your child theme, you know, all of that cumbersome stuff, or using this a plugin like code snippets. You can do all of that directly in Elementor forms. You can set maximum submission limits. So let's say you want a form to only have up to 100 submissions and then no longer accept submissions. You can use this feature. Message generator. So when someone submits a form, you want to generate a message and show them that message. Elementor has a very basic feature that Elementor forms lets you use to, let me show you that first, actually. Let's add a form over here. So among these actions after submit, there is an action called other than redirect. Actually, you don't even need an action for that. Yeah, this custom message. So in this custom message, you can set whether the form was, what message to show based on whether the form was submitted successfully, or if an error occurred, or if a user didn't fill a required field, or if there was some invalid input. But with this particular feature, where did it go? Yeah, this message generator feature, let's take a look at its description. So with this, you can display a more advanced message rather than just this text-based message, using more formatting, colors, designs. You can even show a particular Elementor template as a message. And I use this for a client where they were using a form to onboard users after they had registered. So once users had registered, they were sent to, redirected to a form. And that was like a 10-step form asking different questions, showing them different sort of information. And then once the user had submitted the form, based on the values that they had submitted in the form, it showed them a very nice chart based on the data that they had submitted. And that chart sort of provided them insights on their personality and told them what sort of content would be best suited for them on the site, and then redirected them to that sort of content. And I built it using this particular extension. I created an Elementor template with all of that information, and I set that template to be the message for after that form submission. So instead of being limited to just these basic lines of messages, I could have this success message to be whatever I wanted, a whole Elementor template. And this is very useful feature. And then method. So whether you want to submit a form based on post or get, which could be handy for some advanced use cases. Password visibility. So one of the greatest features of this tool is that it can act as a login form or a registration form as well. That's one of the features that we're going to see somewhere over here. Wait, just let me check. Is the registration feature a native feature? Let me quickly check that. No, the registration feature isn't a native feature, but using this tool, we can use Elementor form as a registration form as well. We're going to see how. But this particular feature lets you, let's say you have a form as a registration form and there's a password field on it. This feature can let you add that visibility eye icon where you click it and you can see the password that you've typed, which isn't possible with the native Elementor form. And then there's PayPal and Stripe. Let's discuss these two together. So just like the PayPal and Stripe add-ons for Gravity forms, for Ninja forms, for WP forms, for Fluent forms and all, this particular feature lets you use a form submission to basically bill a customer, to charge them based on their PayPal or Stripe based credit card information that they've supplied while filling the form. So you can use a form, and a native Elementor form, to actually charge customers as well. Let's say you've got a full quotation form, and when they've filled in the entire form, a quote is generated using this amount field of this add-on, and then they get an option to pay via PayPal or Stripe right away, rather than just submitting data and then having you get back to them for the payment details. Why not just get them their payment right away? And then there's PDF generator. So let's say they've paid and you want to generate a receipt. So you can use this PDF generator feature to generate the receipt and send it to them with their payment right away. Or let's say they've generated a quote and you want to email them that quote as a PDF. You can do that. Then there's PHP validation. So if you're not content with the JavaScript field that we just took a look at somewhere over here, where did it go? Yeah, if you're not content with this JS field and you want some backend based validation of form before it's submitted, before the data actually gets into the database, you can use this PHP validation field so that you can write any sort of validation conditions, and based on those conditions, it'll be decided whether the form submits successfully or it returns an error. Then there's a regex field. You can use regular expressions to validate particular fields based on this regex field. Regex or regex, however you want to pronounce it. Actually, since it's regular, it should be regex. Yes. And then there's a reset button that you can place anywhere on your form for users to reset the entire form that they've filled so far. And the save for Elementor Pro form. This is a very interesting feature. I meant to open it in a new tab, but it opened in the same one. Never mind. So with this one, you can have the submission saved as any post, any custom post type, or any term, or a user. So you can use this feature to make your Elementor form a user registration form, which can create a new user with the defined role, whether they should be automatically logged in or not, or if the email address they enter belongs to an existing user, it could update their information, and you could create a post with the title, content, and all the metas as draft or as a public post. So you can build front-end post creation and front-end product creation and front-end user creation submission forms using Elementor forms as well, which is a great feature. I've used it a lot. I don't need to use other third-party plugins or, well, this is a third-party plugin, but let's say I'm natively working with Elementor, then anything Elementor is first-party. So then you don't need to work with other non-Elementor tools to build such forms. You can do all of that with Elementor forms.
Right. I think we're up to the 45-minute, and I think we already covered quite a bit, Haroon.
There's just maybe 2 or 3 fields left.
Rightio.
And let me quickly go through those. Just a few left, yeah. We can just discuss these within 5 minutes so that in the next session, we don't have forms to cover anymore. Rightio. There's a select to field, which is a more advanced selection field. Select to is pretty popular among UX enthusiasts for most part, because it's a more user-friendly selection box. And then there's a signature field in which you can capture signs. You don't need to use DocuSign. You can use your own website with a custom Elementor form with a signature field to capture customer signatures for contracts. Stripe, we've already discussed. There's a submit button. So by default, the Elementor forms submit button appears below the fields. So you add the fields, and no matter where you want to place the submit button, it's always going to come after all of the fields. Let's say you're building a form in which you want a submit button to be at a different location. Let's say you're working with multiple columns, and you want a very specific location where you want submit button to appear, rather than just at the end below all the fields. You can use this submit button and then disable the default submit button of Elementor form, and this would act as your submit button. And then you can also use the submit on change feature, so that when a field's value changes, the form automatically gets submitted. So that someone is partially filling the form and the data gets saved. Let's say someone switches between 2 different options of a radio button, the data automatically gets saved. And then there's Telegram field, where Telegram message can be sent upon a form submission. There's a unique ID field, where when the form is submitted, an ID field is automatically included with the submission. That is a unique field, auto-generated field that the user doesn't have to fill. And then there's a WYSIWYG editor. So while Elementor forms does include a normal text editor field and a large text editor field, it doesn't include a WYSIWYG editor where users can format the content that they're entering. So this one gives you a complete fully formatted WYSIWYG editor. This is highly useful if you're building front-end submission for posts or front-end submission forms for products, posts, any content type. Then this WYSIWYG field can come pretty handy. So that pretty much covers all of these fields. In the next session, we're going to probably take a look at some of these fields in action, and
we'll see what kind of feedback we get about this. Now, if you found this interesting, folks, leave a comment in the WP-Tonic Facebook group page. I've also pushed this to LinkedIn. If you found this interesting, folks, and you're watching this on LinkedIn, leave a comment if you want us to do some more sessions about this particular add-on. I think we're going to wrap it up now, Haroon. And we'll see you next month, where we're going to be doing a couple more of these free workshops. We'll see you soon, folks. Bye.
Bye.